let's start with what is not a hot take, because I know all of you who are listening are going to agree with me when you hear the details of this. And it is the newest update in the hideous gutter troll monster, Letecia Stauch. Because if you remember, she was convicted for murdering her stepson, Ganon. And that conviction has now been overturned. Now, when I first saw this news break last week, I literally thought it was April Fool's. I think I found out on the 2nd, and I was like, is this an April Fool's joke? This actually cannot be real. The evidence was overwhelming. If you remember the interviews, the body cam footage, when she chucked that monster can in the back of the cop car, this woman, I'm like getting chills right now talking about it. I don't know why she makes me so irate, and I hate this woman. So let me break down what's going on, because this is definitely an update that I did not expect to be sharing, especially in a case like this, but here we go. So as you may or may not be familiar with, this case is one that we have covered before, so I'm not going to do a full super deep dive into the background, but for those of you who are unfamiliar and have no idea why I'm getting as angry as I am going to quickly recap what happened. So this all started back in January of 2020, and that is when 11-year-old Ganon Stauch was reported missing out of Colorado Springs. What followed was weeks of searching, stories constantly changing, and a lot of suspicion surrounding his stepmom, Letecia. Investigators later said that Ganon had been killed inside their family home, and then his body ultimately had been found later in Florida after being transported, I think it was over 1,500 miles across state lines. Letecia was arrested, she was charged, and in 2023, she was convicted of first-degree murder, and she was sentenced to life in prison without parole, plus an additional 13 years. And that is like skimming the very top line surface of what is truly involved in this case, because it wasn't, obviously no murder is just cut and dry, but like, it wasn't just that. There was ongoing torment, emotional abuse. There were videos and audio recordings of Ganon where he thought he was being bad and in trouble for things that he was doing, where he had a burn one time and she was like yelling at him about it. All he wanted to do was play his video game at times. And in the bedroom, the crime scene photos were horrific. You could see like what happened, and it just goes so much deeper. And don't worry, I am going to be doing this, I think maybe as a possible reopened, I'm not sure, on my second true crime podcast, 10 to Life, just so that ahead of this now new trial that's going to be coming up, you can get fully up to speed. But it is a very complex case, and there is so much that goes into it. And once you learn about all of that, if you don't already know, you'll 1000% understand why I'm so angry. But the point being, so she was found guilty, and a major part of that trial was her insanity defense. She claimed that she had dissociative identity disorder, that she wasn't the same person, she had multiple personalities, all of these things. However, the jury didn't believe it. So they deliberated for about 8 hours, and then they came back with the guilty verdict. So at that point, it really felt like, okay, great. Case closed, justice served, Ganon's getting justice, his dad is getting justice, this troll, disgusting gutter human being is going to be locked up forever, or at least for a long period of time. Except as of late last week, it's not case closed. Because as I said, now the conviction has been overturned. A Colorado Court of Appeals has ruled that Letecia is entitled to a new trial. And the reason for this? It comes down to something very specific that had happened with the jury, which I have to say really frustrates me too, because not that it's a technicality, but it's something that it didn't have anything to do with her defense or evidence or anything like that. It was something regarding the jury. According to reports, one of the jurors who sat in on the case had a family connection to the prosecutor's office. Specifically, the juror's son-in-law worked for the same district attorney's office that was prosecuting Letecia. And under Colorado law, that kind of relationship can create what's called implied bias, which I think that goes for a variety of states' law, not just Colorado. But it basically means that the court treats that juror as biased by default, regardless of whether they personally say that they can be fair. So during the trial, the defense actually flagged this, and they asked for that juror to be removed. But the judge denied the request. So the juror stayed on the panel, participated in deliberations, and helped decide the verdict. So now that decision, the judge saying that the juror can stay, that's what's now coming back years later. Because the appeals court looked at that and said, no, absolutely not. That was a legal error. You certainly cannot do that.